Good evening. My name is Nathaniel, and this is Impact 2021, our continuing conversation about issues, about relevant topics that are going on today. We look at them from different perspectives based on who we have as our guest and who we have actually joining us in online as well. This is an interactive program where we talk about issues, and you have the opportunity to join us in this program and talk about issues that you think are important. Please feel free. You can type questions into the comment section and your comments into the comment section, and they will be addressed as they show up. So today, we're going to do what we do oftentimes is call it the setup. Some weeks we have guests come in, and then some weeks we have the setup. So this week is the setup, where we set it up for what we're going to talk about in the subsequent weeks. And so let's go with it. First thing we want to talk about is basically what we've been talking about as an ongoing conversation, which is social justice, the push for change, the push for equal treatment and equal representation from Black and brown people throughout this whole entire country. As we've talked over the time that we've been here, over the time that we've had this conversation, we talked about the goals. And step one. So step one was to make everyone aware. That was through Say Her Name campaigns, Say Their Name campaigns, through marches, through people going on to different television programs or different media outlets, social media, doing whatever to just bring attention to what is going on. Look at us. We are here. That Black Lives Matter. That was the initial push. That's the step one, is to let everybody know there are some situations going on. Black people are being killed by the hands of police, and police are not only are they not being punished for it, in many instances they're being rewarded for it through what they call a paid leave, or what I call a rewarded vacation. So that was step one, just to really let people know and make known what our demands were as far as change, as far as progress. Step two, which many other people who came on this program have said, well, step two was voting. And going and voting and putting people in power who are going to be responsive to that change. Getting people out of the way who were trying to keep the status quo, who were trying to make sure that Black people were treated unequally, and people of just Black and brown people were treated unequally. And so that was step two. And so then we go on to step three. But wait, we can't go to step three because it seems like we're right back at step two. And regardless of your political party and who you think, or your political leanings, there is one fact. Who is pushing for rights of Black people and who is pushing against them. And that is not an issue of party. That's an issue of principle. And let's just go right to it. So there's a Senator, Ron Johnson, right now, a senator out of Wisconsin. He's a Republican, and we'll just go ahead and put that out there, who made the statement that he felt comfortable, and I'm paraphrasing, he felt comfortable with the Capitol riots on January 6th when he had the Trump supporting people who said stop the steal, who attacked the Capitol building, causing a police officer to lose his life, causing injuries to over 100 different police officers, they're saying they have been related to another police officer taking his life subsequently after the fact, and a total of 5 people losing their life that day as they stormed the Capitol building and, of course, tried to come after some of the legislators and to stop the certification of the election. And so he said he felt comfortable with those people because he knew that they loved the country. They were Trump supporters who loved the country and wouldn't harm anybody, even though that's not consistent with the facts. And then went to say that he would have been concerned if they were Black Lives Matter or Antifa people protesting that were coming towards the Capitol. And so that is a specific example of someone saying, hey, when you're representing a cause, that they believe in, it's fine. When you're representing a cause for Black people, for Black and brown people, for equal rights, for justice, oh, I'm concerned then. that type of person doesn't need to be there. That type of person needs to be voted out. And if he was doesn't matter if he was a Democrat, Republican, and independent in this particular case, he was a Republican, he needs to be voted out. And so that's step two, because you can't have social justice when you have the enemy, what y'all call them, right there making the laws or making the rules, sitting there in the Senate. And so so the step two is voting. But the problem that we're having now is that voting rights are now being challenged. As of February, in over 40 states, there's 250 different bills right now that are trying to restrict voting rights. One of the most egregious states that are doing it is Georgia. They're really trying to attack Black people specifically. And one of the reasons that it's important for the conversation that we're going to have is it's the Black church specifically that they're trying to attack. For example, one of the bills that in Georgia is to stop weekend voting, early weekend voting, or not stop, but to restrict early weekend voting in Georgia. And it's going to reduce the number of days that you can vote on the weekend. And specifically, the last Sunday of early voting will be eliminated. And that is one of the days that historically is souls for the polls, where Black people will go directly from church to their voting location and cast their votes. And then you would say, well, I mean, is it really that big of a deal? Well, only 26%, around 26% of people in Georgia voted on the weekends. But of that, it was over 30% of those people are Black people. And 30% of the Black people who voted early would have voted did vote on one of these days that will now be eliminated. So it's specifically going for the Black population and the Black church, because Souls for the Polls, it's a historical movement where you're really trying to come after the church for, you can't vote on Sunday anymore. So you can't encourage your people to go vote. Even though, as we know, churches are not supposed to be telling people who to vote for specifically, but you can't even tell your people to vote. They're trying to eliminate that. And so, as we've talked through these things and we've looked at these things and we've said solutions are check one, we do need to bring awareness. We do need to rally. We do need to protest. We do need to do these things. Step two, we do need to vote. Now we have to kind of go stop at step two and make sure we ensure our rights to vote. That is the discussion that we need to have. And that is the discussion that we're going to have going forward with our next time getting together. What do we need to do about that? Is that an issue of concern? And then especially the aspect of attacking the Black church specifically when it comes to trying to come up with different rules and different voting rules. And just to go back on a positive note, the House, the United States House, has just enacted a resolution, which will then turn into a bill to protect the voting rights of people. And so that falls back into play of what we should be, of what voting does. One of the things that actually legislation will do is that it'll do an automatic 2 weeks of early voting in every single state. Mail-in voting, you'll no longer have to have a reason for it. Everyone can do it. And it'll be auto registration. So you don't have to worry about, did I register to vote? Those type of things. And so the question that we have is, how important is that to, how is that important to the cause? Is that really an important part to the cause? Because again, we've constantly said that step one and step one is awareness. Step two is being able to voter registration and participate in the process. If they're going to try to take away or damage step two, how important is that? We're finally getting some legislation put out there. We're finally getting some people in place that we think or that we know are putting together some rules and some laws to be able to protect voting rights, to be able to take away different issues. For example, I'll even give one more nugget, is that the president, the newly elected president, just put out, there was an extension of an extension of the Criminal Reform Act that was done a couple of years back. It didn't include cocaine-related crimes. And so they were reducing sentencing for crimes, especially crimes that disproportionately affected Black and brown people. They left out cocaine, crack cocaine crimes. And we know that disproportionately affected Black individuals. Well, this new president has just decided to put forth in the legislation that's being challenged in the Supreme Court that they should include those type of charges. One of the major reasons is, again, because it disproportionately affected Black and brown people. And so that they gave one example. I know one example that's been put out there that's going to the Supreme Court is of a gentleman who had 3 ounces of cocaine, got 15 years in prison time, and then that being reduced. And if you don't know, proportionally speaking, that is a relatively small amount of illegal drugs for distribution. And so it's moving the legislation. So legislation is being moved and created to assist in the gap of Black people being overcharged in relation to other cases. And specifically, that is one where if a white person and a Black person had the exact same amount of drugs, especially when it comes to cocaine and crack related charges, that the Black person would get a harsher sentence. And so that's where we're at. That's what we'll be talking about next week. We'll be talking about voting, the attack on specifically voting of people of color, and the attack on Souls for the Polls, and the attack on what's going on with the church and voting and pushing people of color. Please join us as we will have guests to discuss this issue, and we will go deep into this issue. And we'll continue to have this conversation. As I remind you, we always want questions and comments. This is an interactive conversation, not just as we have it, but even after the fact. If you have any questions or any comments that you want to put into the section, we'll continue the conversation. So please join us next week as we discuss what's going on, as we discuss social justice, as we discuss voting, and as we discuss the fight to make sure that Black and brown people are treated fairly in this country. Thank you. This is Impact 2020. Please join us next week.